Welcome to Scene Study. The purpose of scenestudy.org is to bring local actors together, giving them the opportunity to practice and rehearse with one another. Actors frequently rehearse monologues, search for auditions, and risk all to get the role. What happens when one's chops are feeling rusty? You've practiced that monologue time and time again, but lack feeling the electricity that comes from connecting with another person? What happens when you're feeling rusty in the classics, improvisation, or new material? When that feeling begins to fade, it's time for membership to scenestudy.org. Scene Study allows local actors to connect with local actors. List your interests, skill set, and rehearsal needs, and find scene study buddies to practice with in your area. The most common audience will be local actors who have moderate to infrequent work. We will also target an audience base comprised of actors who are working but need to work on new material. That was my strategy. I want the colors to be somewhat dramatic and the site to be user-friendly for the audience of actors, as actors don't have a lot of patience and like to go. The scope and structure, as well as the skeleton, were rolling as I described my strategy. And a little more on the scope and the structure. I thought the page needed a clean home page, an about page providing more detail. Here are some of the pages that I'll be submitting, so I won't get into those, but these provide the details of the page. Other options here, that'll be tips. This will be like a profile page where you're able to upload your information, your headshots, your resumes. This is the start of a location page here. Once again, utilizing some JavaScript, and eventually there'd be markers of every buddy that was on the page so that you could see buddies locally and in your area and meet up to rehearse. And then the contact and join page, which I covered in my submission details. Now moving on to the surface. This is the first page that I'll be turning in, the scene study headshots. Highly JavaScript enabled. I have swipe box enabled here. So as you can see, that functions as it should. Then I go on to the buddies page, and this is really the functionality of the page. I wanted to focus a lot on JavaScript just because that was one of my goals in the class, was to learn JavaScript and develop a familiarity. So this is where you can sort by actors and interests and find a buddy that would be interested in rehearsing and practicing the same material as you. Joseph might want to play Lloyd from Noises Off, so you could grab a script Noises Off or something similar and practice with each other. These are buttons for later development. And the third page that I'll be turning in is the contact page. It's where you join. It's pretty straightforward, but again utilizes the JavaScript functionality. If I don't enter a valid email address, won't let me join either. So those are the three pages that I am turning in. Upon reflection, I think that I learned a lot, which is really, really great. To build further, I would go further with stylizing the CSS. I would like to add things like borders, test all of the expanding boxes, and stylize everything like the buttons, graphics, borders, to give everything more of a three-dimensional look. I would like to add a search option to the buddies page where the table sorter is, and add options for more than one item in each category of the actor's interest, so they could list multiple plays, multiple characters, and things like that. I began with a simple HTML and navigation structure. I added a separate linked style sheet. I chose to build the CSS from scratch for the most part, rather than relying on frameworks, as I wanted to make sure that I had learned and understood all of it. I did use a CSS library for the table sorter. However, I could only find a green and blue theme. I redesigned it with pinks, reds, and grays so that it would match the color of my site. I converted all of the HTML pages to PHP, and wow, was I able to see how useful PHP is when designing multiple pages on a site. As I had mentioned earlier, I became really focused on learning how to understand and implement JavaScript and jQuery. Once I started to get the hang of it, it just made me want to go further and further. I almost felt frustrated with the limitations of my knowledge thus far. I used JavaScript libraries and jQuery in my contact form, the Buddies table sorter page, and the headshots page. I used JavaScript and the jQuery library Swipebox for the headshots page because I thought it only made sense to use a lightbox to view the headshots. I chose to use JavaScript in all of these because I felt it made sense for the demands of the page. I, of course, used JavaScript in the navigation for the I am here function as well. I feel that implementing JavaScript makes the website much more engaging.